Okay, it looks like we're having that conversation again. It looks like we have to keep explaining, even though I say don't explain, that that men should not prey on young women and girls. Apparently, that is something we have to keep saying. If you're wondering where I got this from, that is a current conversation on Nigerian Twitter right now. The logicals, they are arguing for their right to prey on young women and girls. They're bragging about how they wait outside schools, especially on rainy and cold days, to pick up underage girls and young women. They love it. And you have women and girls on the other side talking about when they were younger and either being almost sold off to older men by their parents, and I'm talking like as young as 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, being offered up to men who are twice their ages. These men are 21, the girls are like 13, the girls are like 15, the men are like 30. It goes without saying that men at all ages who can't get women or girls their own ages are not people you should surround yourself with. A 30-year-old logical has more money or is going to have more money than the average 20-year-old. And that goes for all genders. Even at my age, thinking about how I was 4 years ago makes me puke. The way I was thinking when I was 18 and I thought I knew a lot. And I was like, I'm not going to be one of those people who's going to make these mistakes and I'm going to be thinking about it 4 years later. And that's exactly who I ended up being. The thing is with these logicals at any age calling young women and girls mature for their ages and that they mature faster than boys is only in sex. It's only when it comes to sex. That's it. Not even in pregnancy, not even in childbirth, because they will not let you have a decision over your own body. They will believe you get to cook and clean for them. That's something that you should enjoy. That's something you will do if they marry you off to them. But when you ask him to put his socks in the hamper, do you think he will listen if he wants to? Only if he wants to. He doesn't want to, he's not going to do it. He will listen if he chooses to listen to you. Even then, who are you but a little girl? I'm not going to suggest that poor people who don't have money or resources, make worse parents than parents with money and resources. But they do prey on you when you don't have anything. They prey on you when you do have something. They prey on you when you're older. They prey on you when you're younger. And then when we as women, we talk, especially for the younger women and the girls, we are called old and bitter. Either way, are you wrong? You're not wrong. They call you old and bitter so you'll shut up and you won't speak about these things. They are preying on young girls because they want to. It's not because 18-year-olds are more attractive than 30-year-old women. It's literally not that. We can have a conversation about beauty and attractiveness in the average young woman and the average middle-aged woman or whatever. But that's not what this is, and that is not supposed to be the point. The point is, they will say that 18-year-olds are more fertile than 30-year-olds. And that's completely ignoring the fact that there are women and girls of all ages who have hysterectomies because of diseases or illnesses. Women and girls who can't biologically give birth. There are some women and girls who, if they give birth, they will die. They don't care about any of that. It's just easier to control a girl or a woman who is pregnant. And it's easy when you have these kids back to back, just so you can subjugate a woman. The reason why they want young girls and they want young women is because they want more time to abuse female humans. That is it. We can add all the pomp and the circumstances, all the little decorations and adornment. We can talk about this and that, but that's it. Time is men's biggest enemy. They'll say that time is our biggest enemy, even though women have an easier time getting older because we don't care about a lot of these things. A lot of men project their insecurities and their fear of getting older onto women and girls and make it seem as if it's the best thing in the world or the thing you should look forward to the most by getting chosen by them. To get chosen by a man or a boy is the highest form of flattery. It's going to set you up for life, even though these men are arguing for their lives to be neats and to not go into employment and make any money and clean themselves. These men stink. Their drawers, their boxes are held together with old shit stains. And yet they're saying that we envy each other. We envy the women and the girls who get chosen by them. But when women and girls come on the internet, well, the number one things they complain about when it comes to their husbands and boyfriends. Oh, he won't wash. He really stinks. I don't know what to do. Every single day, against my will, I have to read stories about how women and girls are navigating relationships with these men. And you want to tell me that boys and men, that their biggest gripes with women and girls is because we're not young enough? These words will leave men's mouths. They'll say that, oh, I can't believe she's 30. I can't believe she's 40 because she looks what? Young. It's not about look. It's about the ability to control. The reason why they don't want to go for older women who are older than 25 is because your prefrontal cortex has developed at 25, yes, but it's also the fact that you'll be less likely to accept BS because you would have probably experienced a lot by then. I'm glad to have experienced enough by this age to know that I'm not gonna change much by the time I reach 25. People say that their brains literally felt their brains like get weird or like different when they reach the age of 25, so I'm looking forward to seeing what all of that's about. What they want is to just be swapping women out as they go along. They want to trade women in. So these young girls that get at 13, they have a good maybe 15 years with her. She's approaching 30 and she would have had like 5 or 6 or 7 kids for him. And this can be all over the world. It's not just places like Nigeria, even though Nigerian Twitter is the ones that are having the conversation now. When she's approaching 30, she would have hit the quote-unquote wall, and then he's going to trade her in for a younger model. That's the way they describe it. These men will brag about how these young girls were impressed with their cars, impressed with being taken out to fast food restaurants, impressed with the little sweets that you gave them. Why wouldn't a child be impressed by sweets and flashy cars? I myself was not impressed by flashy cars when I was younger. I'm not impressed by flashy cars now. But I like sweets, yes. I've always liked sweets. And this is another funny thing, that these men and these boys, they will lead with what they have. They will lead with these material things. And then when it runs out, they'll be wondering why these women and these girls don't want them anymore, while they don't want to be in their presence anymore, because you led with these material things and now the materials are gone. You have nothing to work with, and then we have to be sitting with your personality. And then the reason why you led with material things is because your personality doesn't make up for anything. To tell men to go for women their own age is to tell them to have a personality. It's to tell them to bring as much finances as the woman is bringing. It's to tell them to put themselves in the mindset of an adult. That means they have to be held accountable. Adults are held accountable. We hold children less accountable. At least we're supposed to hold children less accountable. The ages of boys who are assaulting girls and women is getting younger and younger. The assaults we're hearing about are getting younger and younger. But it does not mean that the older men are getting away with it. Consistently, this has always been a topic. Your grandmother probably got married off at 13 like mine. She probably got stolen by your grandfather. And it's not that far removed from what's happening right now. To this day, it's just more likely women are going to be ending up in education. Girls are more likely to pursue school and be allowed to pursue school, and that is a problem, the being allowed. While boys have always been able to do these things, nobody allowed them to do it. They chose to do it. The same way these men choose purposely to go for young women and girls because they don't know any better. And that's why they argue against education, because education will encompass sex education. And in sex education, at least if it's taught properly, you're supposed to learn about birth control. If you don't know anything about birth control and you start having sex, you're probably going to get pregnant. And if you don't know anything about pregnancy, you either die or you will have this baby and you will not know how to take care of it. No, I said you will have this baby, because these boys will run. These men will run. I think it's 40% of teen pregnancies are actually caused by grown men. So these young girls and these women are being assaulted by these guys who are old enough to be their fathers and grandfathers. And we're supposed to pretend as if the world doesn't groom girls and groom women to accept this kind of behavior. But more and more of us are speaking up, and we're sick and tired of pretending as if we haven't seen it. I'm very, very lucky. And a lot of us are very, very lucky we escape these things. But as long as we keep talking about it, it no longer has to be in the shadows. The reason why they go for people who can't legally vote, people who can't legally drive, people who can't legally drink. So when they marry you, it will be like they have a child bride, because that's what you'll be. We wonder why our mothers have no personality outside of our fathers. It's because of when they met them. They met them when they were teenagers and they literally had no personality. They had no goals. They had no money. They had no hobby. They had absolutely nothing but the idea that they should be a wife and a mother eventually. And that's what they did. And while your father does golf or he does basketball, he has all his hobbies and his silly little friend, your mum has absolutely nothing. She won't even give herself the grace to have a slice of cake on her own. And we want to pretend as if men do not prey on children so they can groom them and raise them into the wives that they want them to be. I think it was Muhammad Ali who said about his second wife, he wants to raise her into the perfect wife. These men want to imprint on you. They'll say they want you to be coachable and teachable as if this is a basketball team. This isn't the bottom of the ninth, but they're acting as if they're going to die tomorrow. And that's why they project onto you that your tomorrow will be the end of your life and your tomorrow is like 28, when by 25 these men are balding, sperm count down in the dump, money depleted. Nobody wants to hire them, nobody wants to employ them because they F corpses, they F animals, they try to F children, they'll stick their penises into anything, they can't be trusted, they're not responsible, and they stink. They were trusted, quote unquote, trusted with the world, and look what they've done with it. Leave our girls alone. I just finished watching this film on Netflix, and it's a very good film. You should go and watch it. I think this is Anna Kendrick's first film as a director, and personally I feel like this is a very good debut. And if there are more films made like this and about things like this, then I'm pretty certain people would stop saying things like how they handled the Ted Bundy cases by saying that, oh, the reason why he got away with it, or the reason why he was able to do this to as many women as possible was because he was handsome. We need to scrap the idea that women are these like horny, listless, shallow, sexually attracted, driven people. Like, we're the only ones who think that way. Apparently we let men who we're attracted to do all sorts of things to us, and that if a man is attractive, you know, that's the thin line between him being a predator or somebody you want to be with. Whether you're ugly or attractive or whatever as a man, they are completely and utterly able to do these things. It doesn't matter how they look. They will do these things and they get away with it. It's not much better nowadays when it comes to these cases, especially in countries where I live, where the conviction rate is very, very low. Is the fact that back then in like the 60s, 70s, 80s, detective work was very, 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 very annoying. They weren't going to do nothing. They would reach cold ends, dead ends at every turn, literally because they did not know what to look for. You will bring a mountain of evidence and they'll be like, oh, she's been hysterical. You might survive these things, and then the police will be like, well, if it was that bad, why did you survive it? It's funny to me that men of colour, for instance, will fight women of colour. And it's funny also how murderers like Ted Bundy, for instance, was thought to actually be a black man because they, quote unquote, the police did not believe that Ted Bundy could possibly be a white man. And then when there was evidence that found he couldn't be anything but a white man, they then moved on to the idea that women found him so irresistible and irresistibly attractive that they, of course, followed him to his car. Of course, they would go on dates with him, blah, 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 this, that, and the third. And that's why he was able to get away with it. Anything to not hold themselves accountable. And these would be male police officers, obviously. There weren't many female police officers, especially in places like America, in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And if there were any, they were either chased out due to sexism and misogyny. The job wasn't very good pay anyway for women. And you could also be a victim yourself, so there was no point anyway. But these are the times they want us to go back to, but then they say these things never happened. They say these things don't even happen now. There was so much evidence, so many accounts, so many testimonies, and yet they were overlooked. This guy that the film is about, he was able to commit, I think, over 130 murders, but they didn't think it was that much up until recently. He's dead now, but he was able to do these things spanning over 10 years. It was the same thing with murderers like Ted Bundy. The most quote-unquote prolific serial killers are ones that were obviously able to get away with it. In my earlier video, I was talking about how guys like to pretend that they have other reasons as to why they're upset with society and voting and political parties, when they're really just upset at women and women for having freedom. If you watch this film, not to spoil anything, but there's always a woman who knew, always a woman who tried to report these people. They tried to report these logicals, these men, and they were laughed at, they were thrown for a loop, they were mocked relentlessly, and it makes them feel crazy. Because at one point, a woman in this film said to a police officer, do your effing job. For a police officer to do their effing job, that would mean they'd have to care. They would have to go through the proper channels to get these things done. But they don't. Because the reason why, especially maybe where you live, in places like which we refer to as quote-unquote third world country, their conviction rates don't even exist. It's not just that girls are already being forced into like child marriages and everything. You have to also look at the rates of abortion, non-existent. And they also have the highest maternity rate. flip it and look at women in like the West. Something's got to give. We have higher rates of abortion simply because we're allowed to get it. You see lower rates of marriage, but do you know what you also see? High rates of assault, low rates of conviction. Something's got to give, and they've got to remind us in some way that they don't like us, that if we don't do what they want, they get to punish us. Some people might watch films like this and say that this is the reason why women need to practice being able to say no to men. Women need to practice more at premeditating when men are going to do things like this. I don't see how a serial killer could make his way onto a dating show unless he was excused of the things he'd been doing. There's a reason why somebody like this would be able to get away with murdering over 130 women in a 10-year span. There's a reason why they would ignore people who knew he did this, and they would go to the police and tell them exactly what happened, and then the police will be going and finding him and laughing with him about it. That's what they do to the guys you report. That's what they do when they catch these guys and question them. They'll be talking about, what about their future? This man has a bright future ahead of him. What about us? Do we not have bright future? The brightest future they have for you is to become a wife and mother. And they wonder why we think it's an insult when they approach us and proposition us with their time, with their present. If a guy comes up to me and propositions me with taking me on a date, or propositions me with marriage and children, I think he'd hate me. We're not too far off a generation where the abuse of women and the sexualization, objectification and the violence against women was played for laughs. Like if you've watched documentaries on shows we used to watch as kids, probably like the WWE, and that generation was after a generation where this film is set in the 60s, 70s, 80s, where not only women weren't taken seriously at all, you could literally be murdered and then not talk about your murder until like 15 years later. By then, your body's already decomposing. How many films need to be made? How many books need to be written before people understand how easy it was for a guy to murder a woman and get away with it? Even Ted Bundy himself said that it's not because women found him attractive. He would literally cry and create a sob story. And sometimes these women would be like, yeah, I don't believe you. And then he'd hit them over the head with something. He even managed to take a woman into the mountains or something, and he hit her over the head and was sexually assaulting her. And she still managed to get away from him. He wasn't like a brilliant person. He wasn't hyper intelligent. Not the way they like to paint him out to be. A lot of these guys, they say the reason why they do these things to women, why they assault women, is because of opportunity. Like they have the opportunity to do it and they're bored. In fact, apparently in the 60s, 70s, 80s, it was very boring. So they had to create things like cults and becoming serial murderers just because there was nothing else to do. It's all a lie. There were things to do. It's just exerting your power and dominance over a woman. That's how it works. And it's literally luck. On the other side, it's luck that you might not be able to be a victim of these guys. Somebody may have been walking by when he was trying to assault you, so then he had to give up and assault somebody else. And they turn around and try and blame us for not being able to know these things. I thought the 70s were like the good old days. What happened to that? You mean the good old days for the guys, for men, for the logical? It wasn't good for anyone who wasn't a cisgendered straight man. It's an insult to pretend as if none of these things were happening to women just because men wanted to do them. They could go on to write books about the things that they used to do to women all the time. And these men will have fans online. They will have men trying to emulate what they're doing and trying to copycat what they're doing. They'll have women fawning over them. So he was cute though. I'm not going to say you will be thinking differently if it happened to you. But it's just funny how these things can happen. Something like this can happen to you. Like you could be a victim of something. And then you turn around and spit on other victims and say, well, if I was in your position, I'd be able to get out of this. And they tell us to smile. They say, don't make men feel too bad about themselves. Your intelligence is too threatening to a man. Any old excuse to excuse the reasons why they do things to women. And the only reason why they do these things and have been able to get away with it is because they want to. I said the reason why I wasn't talking about Love is Blind is simply because I was waiting for all the information to come out, especially pertaining to the Tyler situation. And by now, I'm pretty sure most of us who are watching the show already know what's going on, already know what it is. So it's safe to talk about it now, especially since I'm caught up with all the episodes until the weddings, obviously, which will be out next week on the 23rd. So first I'm going to put a screenshot of the cast just to remind everyone of who actually was casted, even though not all these people ended up being chosen. Let me just say, this season is a hot mess. It's just a mess. It's a hot mess. Not all these people were chosen, but the couples are dropping like flies. They are dropping like flies. These so-called marriages, they are dropping like flies. Corpses all over the place. Here lies this very short-lived engagement. There was a brief 5 minutes when I was watching this show that I actually thought Nick and Hannah were going to be the only ones who end up going down the aisle. I'm sorry. And that was a very short 5 minutes. And this was when Mr. Garrett was found to be lying to Taylor. And I'll say my thoughts about that in a minute. But you have to say something about shows like this when the couples that seem to be doing good are not doing good, but they're doing better than other couples, or like they don't have as big problems as the other couples, or like as big red flag. Because you obviously are probably of the mind that you do not want Ashley to marry Tyler, but you don't care whether Hannah marries Nick. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that you're not actually attracted to Nick. I've never really seen anyone online call Nick handsome, and I'm not here to discuss how handsome he is. That's not the point. But I found it very interesting watching previous seasons of Love is Blind and seeing people defend very bad men or defend men who have done things that you wouldn't accept in real life. But because you're attracted to them, like, it's fine to be like, oh yeah, she's being mean to him. Like, oh, I would like him, I'd treat him better. He cheated. He was dating someone else while he went on the show. He has allegations against him. He's basically a man-child. Things you say you wouldn't accept in real life, I guess. But it's completely and utterly okay for you to be like, okay, because this guy's attractive, like, this woman is just not treating him nicely, and I'll treat him nicely if I knew him. Because the guys who watch this show, they're not making excuses for the women. They're really not. But that's by the way. So let's start with Taylor and Garrett before I forget anyway. So I really like them. I feel like they're the only couple that should actually get married at the end of the day, because apart from Garrett lying, obviously they were able to move past it, none of these couples need to be together. Like, that's just talking from like a legal standpoint, because we'll talk about this in a minute, but with Garrett and Taylor, I need people to be so for real. If you've been cheated on, and I say this as someone who has not actually been cheated on, but I know people who have, and I know what it does to people. I know what it does to a person when they've been cheated on. It's really not nice. So I need people to stop traumatizing people while you're in relationships with them, and also being patient with people being traumatized. But obviously you don't have to subject yourself to a relationship with someone who's traumatized, but be understanding as to why someone might have a trigger that's very easy. And I'm not talking about triggers where they lash out at you and hurt you. I'm talking about the triggers where you know this thing will probably upset this person and it's making their mind go to different places. Taylor said she's been cheated on, so it would be completely like understandable that when Garrett's replying to an ex in some way, because guys do this thing and it's not normal, it's not good, and it's not right. Just because a man's doing it doesn't mean it's right, where they just are very blasé about things and just very passive about things. And then even passive blasé responses are responses, but to guys are like, oh, I didn't mean anything by it. We know for a fact, and not just because men have admitted it, we know for a fact that men sleep with women and marry women they don't even like. So what's stopping us from knowing the truth? We already know this. We already know that you do things that you don't care about, or you're with people you don't care about. That's not the point. But what you're doing here is you're trying to marry somebody, but you're not trying to understand or listen to why they might be not that okay with you lying. Because he let it slip when they were talking to Ashley and Tyler during the Flappers party. He said, oh yeah, and I said, and then she was like, what? And he was like, oh crap, because he had told her, and we have him on camera, Garrett, we have you on camera, like saying vertebrae, I liked it and I left it. Girl, please. Poor Taylor. I like Taylor. Me and Taylor, I feel like we'd be very good friends. I have a friend like Taylor. I just love that dry humor. I feel like she comes from a very good family, and I'm pretty sure like Garrett comes from a good family from what we've seen anyway. So I hope that's the only blip that we see. And I hope they do get married at the end of the day, because I feel like they're the only couple that could work, to be honest. And I feel like they're on the same wavelength as well. So I'm hoping Ashley doesn't marry Tyler, but from what I can see, I feel like she does. Like, there's no reason, especially as the way things are going and how episode 11 ended, because it didn't end badly for them. I feel like she's going to say yes to him. He's going to say yes to her. He has no reason not to say yes to her. Do we want that to happen? No, we don't. But we know it's going to happen. So you know about all the Tyler things, and we know you've probably seen hundreds of videos about it already. But beware of men who cry like that. Beware of men who pray all the time. Beware of men who like trauma dump on you. And that leads into talking about Mr. Tim. Mr. Tim has a simmering rage. I know the look of someone who is going to go ape on somebody. I know the look of somebody who's just about to crack. Just about to crack. Just anything might set them off. He looks scary. Do you know why? He said he used to be a dog. Dogs, the thing with dogs, yeah, all it takes is a little trigger. You see dogs, they'll be barking at nothing. It's not nothing they're barking at. Dog might be barking at a bird, might have seen something that it wants. You're just not seeing it. You'll be looking at your dog, and then one day it's just going, and you're just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you seeing? What are you seeing? That's Tim. He does not like Alex, especially during that argument. And I'm not gonna excuse what Alex apparently did. I don't condone putting your hands on people's faces. Do not touch people, especially when you're having a disagreement or an argument. Like, I don't care. That is the actions of somebody who's very like spoiled or gets away with a lot of things, and like you believe that you're always correct, always right, and you get to treat people the way you feel like you get to treat them. And it's not a respectful action. But Tim is not any better. And of course, obviously, that's the reason. It's not really the reason. He just didn't want to marry her. One thing I want to say about this show is like, when these people are having doubts, or you quote unquote doubts, when they're like, oh, this is just happening so fast, this is love, they don't want to marry their partner. That's it. Because the timeline and the speed of which this experiment, which is the entire premise of the show, the speed of which it takes, does not bother people who want to get married. It really doesn't. Because you see one partner say, oh, I'm really ready to get married to you. And then the other partner's having doubts because they don't want to get married to them. That's literally it. Because then you'll see couples like Lauren and Cameron that, yeah, they had to talk about things, but did they ever question once whether they wanted to get married to each other? No, because they wanted to get married to each other. Tiffany and Brett, Bliss and Zach, did they have those kind of conversations? Yes, they expressed doubts about the stress of marriage, not being married to their partner. Do you know why? Because they wanted to marry each other. You would think that that's something very hard to figure out. It's literally because they don't want to marry them. That's it. Like Hannah, for instance, was looking for an excuse. Stephen was looking for an excuse. Or should I say Oluwa Stephen? I think Stephen, that 2% of blackness he has that's West African or something, he's probably Nigerian, and the specific tribe Yoruba. That guy is freaky. I know the kind of things he's into. Like, I could tell, especially when he started talking about putting his penis into everything, like anything that's warm, anything that has a pulse. Like, that guy's a freak. He's a serial cheater. He will never be able to commit to anybody. So if you see a Stephen in the wild, do not take a chance on him. Do not think that you are different. Do I think Monica should have... No, I don't think so. I don't think that Monica should be rude. I've met people like Monica. I don't like passive aggressive people, but she did not deserve that. Okay, she wanted to get married. He wasted her time, so I'd be pissed as well. And yes, for asking for your money back via Venmo. The ping that the money has been sent was music to my ears. Going back to Tim is apparently exactly like his mum. I already saw his mum for like 2 minutes. They're exactly the same person. I know the kind of person Tim is. They'd be very difficult to live with. Very rude, very passive aggressive as well. And you know guys that like to tease you to the point where you're very pissed off with them, and then they take pleasure in it. Because I've had people say it's very funny to piss you off, you know. I'm like, why do you think it's funny to piss me off? Do you not know I can fight? You've seen me when I'm upset. You've seen me when I'm angry, and you start running about trying to make me happy. Do you want that to happen constantly or something? People who take joy in annoying you, especially when you've explicitly told them, do not do that. Those aren't people who care about you. Now, Ramsey. Jesus Christi. Those two braids on the side of your head, they've been pulled too tight. I know somebody did it too tight. He doesn't want to wear a condom, guys. He doesn't wear a condom. Why? Why do these guys not want to wear condoms? Why? That would imply that the woman needs to be safe in sex as well. That would imply that the woman's pleasure also matters. That sex isn't just about men getting off. Oh, I feel like that's a conversation for another day. I think the girls aren't ready to hear it. Marissa should run far, far away. Far away. This guy's expressing quote unquote doubt. He wants to have sex raw. That's it. He just wants to have sex without putting on a condom. That's it. Some guys, they like the thrill of being able to get you pregnant, but once it happens, they're gonna dip like, oh, deuces, bye. Marissa, run. He never fooled me. You can't fool me. If you were fooled by him, I'm sorry. These progressive men will always be on the quote unquote right side of every political issue except misogyny, except abortion, and except birth control. Anything that affects women, they're never ever on the right side of it. Have you ever thought to yourself that you don't want guys to be attracted to you? Have you ever had a thought like that? Because I went on Threads the other day and this woman made a post saying, is it weird that I want men to stop feeling attracted to me? And if you've ever had a thought like that, because I've had a thought like that, it's very valid. I'll say that first. And I know where it comes from. Most of us know where it comes from. Now, obviously, if you are a lesbian, you're not going to be attracted to guys. The only guys you probably call handsome or cute or are in animes or in the shows you watch. Even then, we live in a society that likes to devalue and discredit lesbians as actual women who are attracted to women. They like to say that it's because you haven't had the right penis yet, and it's literally like that makes me more of a lesbian. If you're bisexual and you have a preference for women or you have a preference for men, either way these men are going to act the same and say that throughout everything that they do, we should still be like inherently and in a default way just attracted to them. That's it. Even though they don't do anything to make us feel attracted to them. So the past few posts I've made were talking about how there was a woman who made a pie and her sons and husbands ate all of it pretty much and left her like a sliver. And I will hold this view to the day I die and say it's literally because they did not want to wash the dish. It's just a side note that they don't give a single F about their mom and their wife. That's it. I made another post talking about how guys are like, well, yeah, okay, women get pregnant, but like, what are you guys bringing to the table? What are you guys contributing? They'll always say that we're not contributing anything to anything, but yet they will go feral, they'll go insane when they can't have access to at least one of us. And it's not me trying to big myself up or trying to big you up as women, but we really should big ourselves up, because your mere existence and you being successful makes them feel very, very upset about themselves. How many guys is it going to take for you to understand or get when they say these things to you and say that, oh yeah, I want a woman who's going to stay at home even though I don't want to pay for everything. I want a woman who's going to have 10 kids with me even though I don't want to raise any kids. I want a woman who's going to have sex with me all the time even though she may not be in the mood. I don't want babies right now, but I don't want to wrap up. And then the birth control will be effing with your mood, will be effing with your blood levels. If you're anemic, it's going to be effing with you. If somebody pricks you like this, the blood will be pulsating out of your body. But then they don't care about none of that. They don't care about all the actions and things you have to take. So no, it's not bad. It's not weird to not want guys to be attracted to you. Because the thing is, with me, it comes from being harassed on the street. It's guys feeling like they can come up to me and just be talking to me, and it's just like, no, it's weird. We understand and we see, and not only that, we are hearing, we're not just hearing, we're viewing the way these guys talk about us and the way they're sexualizing us and objectifying us, the way they consume media. Because I was thinking about it today, because one thing I like when I watch films or I watch shows that I like to go on the internet and like find forums where people are talking about it. But without fail, every single forum I've gone on has always been tainted by the logicals. And I talked to Charlie about it, but we both watched The Legend of Vox Machina, for instance, and the new seasons come out, and I've all caught up. But every single time, like, that's why I'm glad I have someone I can talk to about it now. But like, I used to want to go and engage, and that's the only show because I do not want anything to ruin it. And I've heard about how one of the voice actresses, Laura Bailey, she's harassed like constantly. And it's like, you guys don't know how to engage with things in a normal way. I want to engage with people who like the same things I do, but like that's the only show. I will never ever ever engage with anybody else outside of the people I talk to about it now with it, because I cannot go on the internet and be seeing these logicals opinions about it, because I made that mistake with Invincible. Many times we have to navigate the world in a small area as a woman. We have to shrink ourselves. And how small is small? What is small enough for you? How far are they going to shrink you until you're like, okay, this is too small now? It's not a bad thing, because we see the way that they think about us. We don't want that. We know for a fact that's not the way someone who says they love you or even remotely cares about you is supposed to think about you. Because when I ask people, or I've asked people why they like me, why they love me, why they care about me, sometimes it's things that you do for them, and sometimes it won't make you feel good. It's not the way you are. I just like having you around. It's never really that. And if you find yourself surrounded by people like that, not just logicals, you know you're surrounding yourself with the wrong kind of people. They can never be normal. The amount of stories you see, the amount of screenshots women are posting online nowadays about the guys they're talking to on these dating apps, or they're talking to a message or social media, and these guys will just throw something so violently sexual in there. You're just like, you guys have no tact. You can't wait. Because the thing is, I hate, like I've mentioned before, I hate when people are like, oh, if men are more like subtle about it, women will be throwing pussy their way. Don't say that. What if you don't feel like doing that? What if you want a connection with someone outside of sex? Stop being like, because guys expect that. That's what they expect, and they'll be saying that's the way they measure how much a woman likes them, by how much sex she has with them. No, sometimes you'll be tired. Sometimes you don't want that. And if you're like me, sex doesn't really speak to you. There are people who are asexual. Like, how is that going to be something? Is sex is what separates relationships from friendship? Not always, and not particularly. If you descend to the need to be sexualized and feel like that's a compliment by men, you will start to see things objectively. They're the ones who made it that way. They're the ones who are saying that, like, oh, because we've seen women this way and we treat women this way, we should just act like this for the rest of humanity. They'll say things have always been this way, but it had to start somewhere, did it not? Why are women delegated to the kitchen, even though we're not born with forks and knives in our hands? We're not born with forks and knives or spatulas or mops and brooms in our hands. We're not born like that. Every single day we have to talk to each other about how to not do this and to do that. And you know, on the other side, all this is probably going to be the part that probably radicalizes you. What do you think guys are advising guys about when it comes to things like this? Do you think they're saying, oh, just be kinder to women? Maybe. But do you know the way they're putting it? They're saying, being kinder, she'll give you vagina. You may not mean it, but just say this because this is what women like to hear. You know, women are more emotional, they're less logical. So this is the trick to get women to open her legs for you. Like lots of women have said, and we all realize this with a certain man in our lives, where they'll be like, oh, I only did this to get you to open your legs for me. They don't have to say it like that, but you know exactly what they mean. You see the way that they treat you. And it's not that you don't enjoy sex. It's not that you don't enjoy intimacy. It's the fact that you're not getting it from them, and therefore you've tricked yourself into believing that that's not what you ever wanted. It's because you know these guys aren't going to give it to you. And they have a good game going with the way everyone's all on this like casual hookups and everything. You can do entirely what you want, and you better be getting your orgasms. You better be having the best time, the time of your life. But a lot of these guys, they don't want to give that to you. It's not your fault. You can't premeditate this. But sometimes when we see these signs, don't ignore it. And then you're coming online to talk about, am I weird for not wanting these guys to be attracted to me? You're not weird at all. You're not weird if you ever have thoughts like that. What you are is logical. What you are is, okay, look, I see a trend with these kind of guys. Like, I'm not going to continue. And I've been in that space where I don't want to be perceived by anyone, let alone the logical. I don't want people to look at me and perceive me and think things about me. I hate the idea that people can think things about you. I hate the idea that we have to navigate the world with people and people get to make snap judgments about you without getting to know you. And even when you don't want people to know you, people are looking at you and they're thinking about you in certain ways, and you're just very weirded out. Because these guys, for instance, the logicals, they're not very quiet about it. I've mentioned it before, but there were tweets about how guys are like, well, if women would have to be in our brains for even 5 seconds, they would off themselves because of all the violently sexual thoughts we have every single hour, on the hour, every minute, on the minute, every second, on the dot. And that's just the lie. They don't do that. The only reason why they might be thinking about that a lot is because they're corn-brained. Like, they fried their brains with corn. That's it. And it's upsetting that we always have to be the ones to censor ourselves, or our videos will get taken down. I don't talk like this in real life. I have to always stop myself and repeat myself and re-record things. But these logicals can literally just come out and just say whatever the heck they want. Say anything about us, whether it's true or not. And then we have to be okay with that. It's not fair. But we've been in that mindset, knowing for a fact that these guys, they have it made. And the only reason why they're crying, why they're complaining, is because you have more and more freedom that they're trying to take away. It won't work. We all know that anyway, but they are really, really trying. There are women suffering from these choices that they're making, and they're trying to pressure you to vote a certain way. I know what's going on in America right now. You guys are supposed to be voting. You're supposed to be voting very, very soon. And then a woman had to come out and say, oh, white women, know that your vote is in private. You guys don't have to actually tell. No one will know who you voted for. And it's very sad that these women are married to guys who will vote against their rights, who will put them in danger. It's very, very saddening. So no, you're not weird if you don't want guys to be attracted to you, because this is the way they act. This is the kind of environment they facilitate and they enable, and they make you scared for the rest of your life. So no, you're not weird. If you hear whistling in the background, it's because I'm cooking. Me a wifey material. I am making oxtail. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because stores, like British stores, like English stores, are starting to sell oxtail, and not for not for very bad prices either. So go and get some oxtail. Make oxtail cheap again, but still, I'm gonna get while it's still available. But I need everyone to take a look at this picture that I'm gonna put in a few seconds. This picture has been haunting my nightmares for a couple of nights now. So I'll just ask people, will this be enough for you? You just made a pie and everyone's supposed to get some. Would this be enough for you? Do you think this is a respectable slice? Would you cut this for someone you care about? If somebody cut this for you and said they did this as consideration, would you take it as A, they care about you, they like you, they love you, either one of those things, or B, they left this sliver of a slice just because they don't want to wash the dish? I'll allow you a few seconds to answer that question. I've given you a few seconds. Whatever your answer may be, I sincerely doubt that you honestly and truly believe that somebody who cares about you would cut that kind of slice for you, or eat around it and then just leave that for you. There's only one way I would take that in the context of my life right now as a single person who does not have kids. You want me to wash the dish. You don't want to be the one to wash the dish. That's the only way I'll take it, seeing as me and my sister are the one who does the dishes in the household. If I was to do this, it's because I don't want to wash the dish. But let's move on from that. The context behind that, and I got it from Ask Aubrey, if anyone wants to go and check out what's going on in her comment section right now, which is kind of disgusting, to be honest. Because when I got to that post, it was not, I think it was less than 10k likes or something, so the comments were relatively normal. And then I went back like this morning or last night, and it's over 100k likes now, like nearly 200k likes. And in the comments is obviously the apologists for the pie eaters. So the context behind the picture was, this woman posted it. I don't know where she posted it to, but Aubrey got it from somewhere. And I don't know how many kids she has, but apparently her husband and sons ate a pie she just baked, like for Thanksgiving. I think it was for Thanksgiving. No, actually it wasn't. She baked the pie, literally left it, and her husband and sons went to go and eat it, and that's what they left for her. Now, I can already tell what kind of dynamic that goes on in that household, especially if she only has sons. And it's not a good one. But what I want to say is that I find it very hard, or I have a hard time believing that these guys do these things out of consideration. They don't care. They just didn't want to wash the plate. They don't want to wash the dish. What the problem is that people in the comments are like, you know, when I cook for people, I want people to eat it. And it's like, I should hope people want to eat your cooking, unless you're trying to poison somebody. That's not the point. Famously, women don't eat. Women don't eat their own cooking. Women don't eat anything. Women just run on vibes and nagging. That's it. Spite. For me, for instance, if I didn't eat food, spite would fuel me. Anger, fury, that would be my food. That would be my drink. But unfortunately for the rest of the world, women do eat. Do we eat more or less than men? It really doesn't matter. Men do not have bigger appetites than women. They're just allowed to overeat. Because the thing is, men are the ones who largely complain of stomach aches after eating. Do you know why? Because they're allowed to eat as much as they want. There was one time we got Chinese food delivered to our house sometime this year. And then we all got like a large portion. So the rest of us, we like eat half the food and then eat the rest of it tomorrow. My brother though, I said to him, please don't eat your entire plate of rice. You will get a stomach ache. He was like, I want to eat the whole thing. And I said, you know what? More power to you. Power to the people on that. Black rights and all of that. Let him eat it. Do you know what happened to him? Do you think it was sunshine and rainbows? Do you think he was smiling from ear to ear? No, he was. He was like, oh, my stomach hurts. Complaining all over the place. I said, you have to go and lie down then. I'm sorry. I warned you. You're looking at a plate of food and you think it's not going to fill you up. Look, these guys just are allowed to not have any impulse control. I've talked about it on this channel before, but Freud, even though he's controversial to a lot of us, especially women, because of the things he said, but he has these three things that are in your psyche: the id, the ego, and the super ego. Barring the other two, the id is like your impulse. We all have ids if we're going to subscribe to that. Like, you can control it. That's the thing. It's the part of you that wants to do this and just do this and just eat this and just drink this and consume this and consume and not stop. But then you have reasoning to question and also tell yourself that, okay, if I eat this entire thing, I'm going to have a stomach ache and it's not going to be good. I don't like stomach aches. It makes me feel very bad about myself and I will not be able to have a lot of mobility. Things like that, normal people reasoning. For a lot of guys, boys, men, the thing is, they can do what they want because they know someone else is going to clean up after them. They just can make a mess. Somebody else will be there to do it. That's the thing. If the boy and their father, the boys and the father, who's obviously not teaching the boys to have respect for their mother, if they eat those things and they get sick, right, it's the mum who's going to be nursing them, isn't it? If she used rotten apples or something, they're going to be sick in it. People are suggesting she puts X-Lax inside the pie next time, which I'm not going to endorse, but I endorse. Because if you have to punish people, because guys like to say, the logicals, they like to say that, oh, we respond to punishment, we respond to a firm voice, we respond to actions. Okay, sure. If she doesn't stop cooking for them, if she's not willing to do that, what I think is she should put something in the pie next time. Put a fruit that they're not willing to eat. Because the thing is, we've mentioned it before on this channel, but a lot of logicals, they like to do things just to spite you. Like, there was the Reddit I did on the woman who had surgery and then her husband was eating all her food that she even found disgusting. There's no way he wanted that. And he said, oh, I ate it because I want variety. No, you don't. You ate it to spite her so she'll be on her feet, so she can still show you that she can get on her feet and slave away in the kitchen, because you do not want to do that. You don't want to pick up the slack, even though she's recovering from major surgery. To the people who tell women like this to be grateful that people just like their cooking and then, in my opinion, I like people eating my food. Food is supposed to be eaten. Don't be selfish. Why are you being bitter and complaining? To the people who say things like that, when women have these very genuine concerns about people eating them out of house and home, to those people I say, let your sons be eating you out of house and home. Every week spend £200 plus on groceries because your husband and your boys, they will not stop eating. If food is available, right, men are going to eat it. That's what they said. And then they want us to believe they're protectors and providers. What I say is, let your sons eat you out of house and home. Spend £200 plus. In the line of evolution, where has the gene gone in these logicals that said they were the only hunter and gatherers? They say they're the ones saying women weren't hunter gatherers, mind you. So we were never hunter gatherers. So that left the boys and the men to be hunter gatherers, right? So where did that go in evolution? If you still are technically, according to yourselves, you're the protectors and providers, where did that part of being selfless go? So what I'm gathering from this pie conversation is that in the event of a apocalypse or something, or a flood, or like a natural disasters, like things that are going on like in Florida, these guys are willing to eat all the rations you have. They're willing to eat everything, and then the daughters, the sisters and the mothers, they will starve because the boys and men are like, I have to eat all of this. What are you eating it for? Energy? Are you going to be in the Hunger Games tomorrow? No, you're not. You can't be in no Hunger Games if you're never hungry. You're eating everything and we're letting them get away with it. The thing is, like I mentioned my brother, there is no way in HE double hockey stick that he's ever going to be that kind of person. He'll eat and eat and eat. But the thing is, I will tell him to stop. I will be like, you have 2 of these, leave the rest for tomorrow. Sometimes he does it, sometimes he doesn't. Or sometimes he does do it. But eventually we'll get to a space where he'll consider other people. Eventually, if this is how long it has to go on, I don't care if it takes 10 years. He is going to be one of those people who considers other people. He will have it in his mind, oh, I've got this whole cake. I've had a slice. Maybe my sisters will like some. Maybe my parents will like some. Is that not the way you want your husbands and your sons to think about you? No. Okay, that's fine with me. But every single time this conversation comes up about women having to work at home, you know, take care of the house. And you are doing this in the mindset that women don't also get to share in the benefits of their own labour. So how are women supposed to not take it as we're supposed to serve everyone else? Not just at detriment to ourselves, but disregarding our needs as human beings. So the conclusion is women aren't human beings because human beings need to eat, but you don't want women to eat the food that they even cook. So technically, what they want to do is say that we're not human beings. That's it. Conclusion, video ended. If this is the kind of behavior you want to accept, is that kind of behavior that I'm supposed to be jealous of, you're looking at me as at least I have a man. Yeah, okay, cool. At least I can eat the food that I make. All these husbands and these sons, they find ways to slight their mothers and sisters. They're usually the first abusers towards sisters and mothers. And this is something we're supposed to aspire to. This is something that we should excuse. For what reason? If you let these guys get away with these things, they're going to do more. If you said, oh, just because the food is there, I'm going to eat it. What's stopping them from being like, oh, just because the woman is there, I'm going to hurt her. I'm going to abuse her. She's not getting on her knees and sucking my peanut. She's not doing what I want, so I have to go and RAPE her. What's stopping them from saying things like that? Because then you have men in the quote tweets talking about, oh yeah, when I was younger, me and my granddad, we ate the pie that my aunt made for Thanksgiving. This is exactly the point. They're selfish, but then they want to say that they're the protectors and providers of everyone. They're the protectors and providers of themselves.